Ordinarily this is a car review channel, but every now and then we do something different, and since this is winter time and mice and rats are looking for a nice place to hide, like your house or your car, and I have a lot of experience with that because I live in the desert with lots of field mice, and every time there's construction going on down the road or whatever, they seem to want to come to my place and hide. But they don't stay very long because I have a few tricks to get rid of them. In fact, I have one device that is guaranteed to get rid of them, and nobody on YouTube has shown you this. It's in this box, which we will show later on in the video. Number one, if you see one mouse in your house or your building, that means there's about a dozen you're not seeing, and they breed like rabbits. If you don't control them right away, you can have a big mess. They'll eat anything, the wiring in your house, the wiring in your car. They can set a fire off, diseases in your food. You see one, you got to get rid of them, and quick. It's no joke. Even though the product I'm going to show you works to get rid of the mice or the rats, you still need to have some traps around to make sure you get any stragglers. I'm going to show you what works and doesn't work real quick. Number one, regardless of the bait you're using, rule number one, you never touch the trap or the food with your bare hands. Some of these mice are pretty smart. They can smell your scent. I've seen them go right up to the trap, take a couple whiffs, and walk the other way. Don't use your bare hands to set a trap. You need gloves. You don't have to buy a whole box, just get some rubber gloves. Make sure they're washed after you put them on and before you set the food. Very, very important. Number two, the biggest mistake people use, using cheese. Mice don't like cheese. Oh yeah, they'll eat if they're hungry enough. I mean, they're eating the wiring in your house, but they only eat it when they're starving. It doesn't really work, contrary to popular belief. Plus, after it's been on the trap a few days, it starts to get rotten. You don't want that, right? Now it draws flies and ants. Don't use cheese. Peanut butter or almond butter, especially the cheap stuff they sell in the stores with all the corn syrup and preservatives, put that on a trap. It can last for weeks, maybe even months in the right weather. And they love peanut butter. The sweeter, the better. Works every time. Well, with the right trap. I'll show you some that don't work right now. Alright, the old wood spring trap. These are very cheap, 2 or 3 for $1. Sometimes at the dollar store. They work, trust me. The disadvantages are kind of tricky to use. They take your finger off if you're not careful, but they work. On the other hand, you have these clamshell traps. Look like a good idea at first. Easier to use. Just put them back. Then in theory, when the mouse comes to get the food, dead. Looks good in practice, but doesn't work. I've never seen one of these work, and I'll show you why. In order for these to work, the mouse actually has to step on the little plate, and they're too smart for this, and here's proof. I put peanut butter on this. Lots of peanut butter, and the little, oh, I can't say that word on here, it's a family channel, reached his head in and licked it all off. He went away laughing. Waste of money, folks. Here's the other one. There's still peanut butter left because he got so full, didn't want to bother licking off the rest. These clamps don't work. These do. Next you have the glue traps, like these big trays, and these don't work either. What happens, the mouse, they don't like climbing stuff. They come along, they just walk around it. The only way this will work is if you put it like between a wall here and a refrigerator. Then it might work because they can't walk around it. But sometimes I'll just turn around and leave. If you do have these, get the biggest you can, because I put one of these little ones between a refrigerator and a wall once. Woke up the next morning, it disappeared. Never saw it again. The mouse took off and this went with it. And that was a year ago. I have no idea where it went. And last we have these thin glue traps. I've had mixed results. About 6 months ago in a building we had a big infestation, and I got 24 mice on these in about 2 weeks. Worked pretty good. The second time I used them, totally worthless. Did absolutely nothing. In fact, I had a big pile of peanut butter in a corner. I put about 10 of these all around. Somehow he got over it, ate the peanut butter, and jumped right over them. Go figure. Another problem with glue traps overall, dust and debris has a tendency to get on top. If you live in a desert with a lot of dust will get on here, making the glue worthless after about 3 or 4 days in a bad climate. Sometimes these work, sometimes they don't. take your chance and see. But in the end, this is the magic bullet. Now what about repellents? A lot of people recommend mothballs. I found they would just repel humans from their toxic fumes more than mice. They're called mothballs, not mice balls, for a reason. They really don't work that well. And even when they do, they just make the mouse go to another room. You want to spread these all over the house and suffocate, be my guest. Peppermint. Yeah, it works, sort of. But you have to use an awful lot, and your house would really stink up for a while. If it's all you've got, give it a shot, but it doesn't work very well. If you go to the pest control store, they have some spray formulas you can put out, and sometimes they work temporarily. I've never seen them work that well. I know the people who use them, they don't really have many things to say that are good. Not a very good choice. So what's in the mystery box? That's what we've been waiting for in the video. Well, you don't get it at the pest control store. You get it at the police uniform store, who also sells security guard equipment. If you didn't guess it, I'll show you what it is. It's called mace, also known as pepper spray. What the police spray on the bad guys when they misbehave. Very potent, and it works. And if you use it right, you will never see a mouse in your house again. Now wait a minute, you're saying this stuff's pretty potent. Won't it stink up the house and gag everybody? No, not really. Not if you get the right kind and know how to use it. The first thing you need to know is don't get the spray. You get the stream, which is a very fine line the size of a pencil, so it goes exactly where you point it instead of spraying fumes all over the place. That is very, very important. You do not want spray, you want stream. And you want to use it sparingly because it is very effective. I used some of this to spray under a mobile home once to get rid of all the stray cats, and it worked very fine. And 4 months later, we sent someone underneath to do some repair work, and they came out screaming, "Oh my God, my eyes, I'm on fire!" And yeah, we kind of forgot to tell him about the mace that was under the trailer, but we just soaked a little water in his eyes. He was okay, but it gives you an idea of how long this stuff lasts. 4 months outside means 4 months inside. Before we show you examples on how to use this, and when we do, pay close attention. Most of us live in a free state where you can just go down to the uniform store, buy this, take it home. There are some people who live in communist states, usually like California and New York. They have all kinds of crazy laws about buying and carrying mace. I don't know where you live. You might not be able to buy this legally. So check with your local police supply store and see what the rules are. Number two, if you use this in your house, you might get some mild fumes for about 10 or 15 minutes. Most people aren't sensitive to that. If you are, it's a very simple solution. For most of these applications, you won't need to worry about sniffing up the fumes off this mace, but if you're worried about it, a very sensitive, very simple solution, go down to the hardware store, buy a gas mask. Alright, you're going to spend $35, but it's cheaper than spending $1,000 for an exterminator to come clear out all the mice. So you're still saving a lot of money. The only reason I have this is because I use it for other things. And the only time I've had to use it for spraying this pepper spray is when I was doing an attic. Kind of hard to escape the fumes there, but like I said, after about 10 or 15 minutes of using the stream, it all goes away. It's sticking to the wall of the floor, not going in the air. But this is an alternative for you if you're worried about such things. I'm going to give you some examples of buildings we exterminated with the mace, using very little. Now this is a mobile home. They were crawling under the floor, living under the bathtub, and getting in the kitchen and the bedroom, and even shoot a little hole in the floor here. So about a 4-second burst down the hole. They were gone with a couple hours, and that was 4 months ago. They never came back. Trust me, they get a whiff of this, they're not coming back at all. Now in case number two, the mice were getting in this outside door where the water heater is. We can tell because of all the mouse droppings, which have since been cleaned up for the most part, replaced by spider webs. So it's a very simple case of spraying the mace all around the floor on the edges and up in the ceiling where they were hiding out. And of course, once they got a whiff of that stuff, they all left in a hurry. Very quick. You might notice, in spite of the pepper spray that's in here, I can still breathe. It's stuck on the floor and in the ceiling, not floating around in the air. in case you're worried about that. And since they like to hang out in the attic, opening this door on the other side of the house and spraying a little bit in this end, make sure that you got the message to get out. And by the way, if you do this, you want to stick your head up there and spray, you might want to wear the gas mask. The obvious question you're probably asking yourself, if you're spraying outside in the utility room and in the attic to keep the mice from getting in, how are they going to get out? Well, they're probably not. Going to be a lot of stragglers, so that's why we have these. There's probably going to be about 5 or 6 left in the house. They're going to get hungry, put the peanut butter on. In about 5 days, the house will be clear. And the biggest mistake people make is putting them against the wall like this, which only works if they come this way, but on the right, they'll trip the trap and you won't catch them. The bait needs to be against the wall, like so. Now here's a little postscript for you. If you want to get them out of your kitchen, you can use mace. But you have to remember, this is like oil, and once it gets on the floor, it does not want to come off at all. It's kind of semi-permanent, at least for several months. But there's a very good trick for that. If you put a stream of pepper spray behind the stove and other appliances, it'll keep them away. Same with under the cabinet. But before you do, put some heavy-duty masking tape on the floor and along the edge of the wall. Then spray the tape. Same thing with under the cabinet. Put it on the edges, one layer on the floor, one layer on the wall. And then in 2 or 3 months, when the mice are gone, just lift up the tape, wearing gloves so you don't get the mace on your hands, and the floor and wall will be squeaky clean. But no, you don't want to spray mace around the kitchen on the walls and the floors directly, because getting it up is going to be a real problem. And by the way, if you have any holes on the outside where mice might want to crawl in, instead of wasting all that expensive pepper spray, a good can of WD-40 works just fine. They smell that, they'll never go in. That'll save you some money. The rules and procedures for the garage are the same as the kitchen, but if your garage looks like this because you're using it as a storage locker instead of parking your cars, you might want to clean it up a bit. Now, what if you live in the desert and you don't have a garage to park your vehicle, which means you have to park it outside? That can be a real problem because the field mice in the wintertime will crawl underneath the hood around the engine to keep warm. They'll start chewing all the wires up and do some very serious damage. Very expensive damage if you don't catch it in time. They like to hide out behind the engine where all the wiring is, or on the side with more wiring. They'll make a nest, they'll chew up the wires and make a big mess. But you can solve this. Okay, this has to be done right. Do not spray mace on an engine. No, 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 we don't want that. And don't spray anywhere north of the engine where the fan is, or radiator. You don't want to be spreading fumes. Just spray it along the wiring, like here and here, making sure not to get it in the in and out plugs. A little bit on the wall back here. It'll get rid of them, keep them out. And if you screw up and do too much, it gets in the ventilation system, take it down the car wash, wash it all out, and do it over again. It doesn't take much. Just a little, enough to give them the message that they don't belong in here. Especially in a vehicle like this. This is $100,000 new. You can imagine how much it costs to replace the wiring. You want a wiring harness for a BMW 7 Series, a friend of mine found it the hard way, $10,000. I don't think it's going to be cheaper in a Lexus. Cheaper to buy this and solve the problem. And that concludes the video, guys. It's cheap, effective, and it works. So that concludes the mouse video. If you want to see no BS car reviews, just click on my card videos. And here they are.